morning, family. Happy 4th of July weekend. I really love celebrating 4th of July. If you can't tell from the red, white, and blue that I have on here. I just think the history of it and how much it's even just played a role in my life, honestly. Because, I think back in 4th of July, obviously, America got its independence from Great Britain back in 1776. Yes. Most people forget, though, there was actually a war with Great Britain that the colonies had lost before that. In 1963, the 13 colonies lost a battle with Great Britain known as the 7 Years' War. It lasted 7 years, in case you were wondering. Now, the thing about the 7 Years' War, thank you, is it costed Great Britain a lot of money and a lot of resources to win this war. Obviously, they're fighting a country that's across an ocean to make happen. So what did they do? One thing they did was they still stationed troops amongst the 13 colonies. And these troops, when they were living with the colonies, they were allowed to sleep in your house, even if you didn't want them to. They were allowed to eat your food. Basically, they were allowed to do whatever they want in the towns and the colonies that they were living in. And to go along with that, they needed to make their money back, so they started to implement all these different kinds of taxes. A lot of us are familiar with the tea tax. A lot of us are also familiar with the stamp tax. And they started to just hike those up so Great Britain can make its money back. And what did the colonies want? Their freedom. Yes. They were tired of the control that Great Britain had in them. They just wanted to be free. Come on, bro. And what ends up happening is in 1776, that's when we formally realize, hey, no more Great Britain. We're going to be our own nation. Woo! And obviously the war continues until we officially get it. Now, the thing about the Declaration of Independence, as it's known, is obviously, we celebrated July 4th. Yeah. Funny enough, the Declaration of Independence was approved on July 2nd. Whoa! So July 2nd was they agreed like, hey, yes, we should secede from Great Britain, that we should have our independence, but it was approved and we celebrate it now on July 4th. Wow. So as much as the colonies wanted their freedom from Great Britain, we understand as those who are following God that there is a truer freedom. Yes. A freedom that comes with the relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's why the title of my lesson here is Let Freedom Ring. And it does hold a special place. In 2013, my dad was in a parade for 4th of July in our small town of King City. And I just remember, King City is a small town, 11,000 population. So we look forward to the 4th of July parade. And we look forward to our fair that comes into town. Those are the two big things for us. And so my first point for you, if we're going to let freedom ring, as a people, we have to let some things happen in our life. And the first thing, freedom rings when you walk with God. Go ahead and turn me over here to 2 Kings chapter 18. 2 Kings 18 verse 2. And this is referring to Hezekiah, who's someone I've been studying out just in my times with the Lord, and in contrast with his father Ahaz. And in 2 Kings 18, verse 2, the Bible says, he was 25 years old when he became king. And he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Abijah, daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. He removed the high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He broke into pieces the bronze snake Moses had made, for up to that time the Israelites had been burning incense to it. It was called Nehushtan. Hezekiah trusted the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. He held fast to the Lord, and he did not stop following him. He kept the commandments the Lord had given Moses, and the Lord was with him. He was successful in whatever he undertook. Come on. Obviously, we read this and we're like, wow, this Hezekiah was an awesome individual. Honestly, someone that we should imitate. It said that he did everything as God commanded him. That the Lord was with him in everything that he undertook. Come on, bro. I bet some of you guys are like, hey, I need God for my classes this coming semester, man. But everything he did, God was with him. And he cleaned house. He was like, hey man, all these false idols, all these false gods that that God's people were actually worshiping at that time, he's like, gone. It is time for us to really clean house here. And that's exactly what Hezekiah did. And the reason why a lot of those false gods and false idols were there was because his father didn't have the same convictions that he had. He allowed the people to go and worship these things, and he himself even worshipped a lot of those idols as well. So what was he focused on? He was focused on his walk with God. That fueled him. That motivated him. That kept him going. And he really did. He even he's like, hey, Levites, it's time for you to come back. You guys been on vacation. Hey, no. It's time to work the temple. And what I love about that, I think of cleaning house, my dad, a lot of the times growing up, he loved to pick a random Saturday. My day off from school, my brother's day off from school, the cartoons in the morning. He would pick a Saturday. And the time was always 6 a.m. Why was it 6 a.m.? I don't know. It was just always 6 a.m. But there was one of two things he would love to do on random Saturdays at 6 a.m. One, clean the garage. Or the other, clean the backyard. And our garage would get crazy. Along with our backyard. Our backyard would get crazy. But I remember there's a time, the garage was my least favorite, because the weeds in the back, we could get crazy. We could just tear those things out, get the rototiller, which we had in the garage, and I just take it in there. We actually shattered a window one time because the rototiller hit a rock and hit the window. But the garage, I didn't like the garage because we had a lot of stuff, and what we would do is we'd take everything in the garage and take it out and put it on the driveway. And everybody from our neighborhood would come, hey, you guys having a garage sale? I wish. No, we're cleaning our garage. And even we'd get a push broom and we'd get soap and water and we'd even scrub the inside of the garage and hose it all out. It was a full day's worth of work. That's how much cleaning we put into the garage. And that's exactly what Hezekiah is here doing to God's people here. When I think of a scripture in the New Testament that refers to how serious I think Hezekiah was, you don't have to turn there, but in Philippians 2, 12 and 13, it says, therefore, my dear brothers, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but how much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose.
Come on, bro.
Let me say, it's up to all of us here. It's up to you. It's up to you to work out your salvation with the Lord with fear and trembling. Let me tell you, it's not always Victor Polito's fault. You can't blame your salvation on our church leaders, Jacob and Courtney Bias. It's not your best friend that said, hey, you're doing a great job, man. Keep it up. Let me tell you, no. It is on every individual person here. It is up to you that you would work out your salvation with fear and trembling. That's what a fierce man and woman of God does. Now, in contrast to his father Ahaz, here's just a passage from what was going on when he was there. It's from 2 Kings 17. It says, they worshiped the Lord, but they also served their own gods in accordance with the customs of the nations from which they had been brought.
Come on, bro.
So during Ahaz's time, Hezekiah's father, what did they do? They showed up to church. They worshiped God. Yeah, they were at the midweeks. They were at the Devos. Hey, there's a booth. I'm fired up for that booth. We're raising money. We're saving nations. Let's go do it.
Yes.
But really, during that time, they were worshiping their own gods. Right. They were following their own customs. They were doing as they saw fit. Right. Let me tell you, that's just not a scary story in the Old Testament. That can come into God's church at any time. And I think a lot of the things that happen, what does it take to get there? Well, one, you stop valuing your time with God.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, your quiet time, your time that you spend with the Lord, when you read and pray, that is the most valuable time of the day, of the week, of the month, of the year. If you don't take that seriously, you're going to find yourself just like in Ahaz's time. You have to walk with God. And here's the thing that's kind of scary. you can have some success without walking with God.
That's right.
You can skip your quiet time, reach out to someone, find out they're super open to getting close to God. Yeah. You're like, whoa, I thought I'd get struck down or something. Like, I'm still here. It must not be that bad. And then you go a second day, and this time you lead a Bible study. And the person's like, yeah, absolutely, I want to follow God with my whole heart. Thank you so much, Davion, for being here and showing me the scriptures. Like, oh my gosh, like, man, if it wasn't for you, like, I don't know where I'd be. And you're just like, day 2 wasn't so bad either. That guy thought I was awesome. And before you know it, like, it's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And you can go weeks at a time without having a quiet time. And you can fool yourself into thinking like, man, nothing bad's happening. I'm sharing my faith. I'm doing all these things. But really, you're worshiping your own idols and your own God, which tends to be yourself. That's one thing. Now, what else can happen? Well, it can start to affect if you continue to not have those times with God. If he isn't that person you're just trying to walk with, it's going to affect how you just act. Not only in the kingdom, but outside of the kingdom. If you don't walk with God faithfully, it is going to send you to have some weird out there thoughts. Let me tell you, who you are when you're at church, it should be who you are outside of church. But yeah, when you're on your own, that's who you really are. I think especially at work. I think at work, we somehow lose conviction sometimes. Because at work, we're around all these people who are of the world. They cuss, they swear, they do whatever they want to do. They're talking about their false gods of alcohol, weed, marijuana, women, all these things.
Come on, Garcia.
And it's saying like, wow, well, they're not going to call me out if I start to talk about these things as well.
Yeah.
And my disciples they don't have my disciples' number. It's not gonna get back to them. Like they'll never know. Never. I think I'm safe to dive into a little sin here. And we start making some crazy decisions. We start watering down the standard. Now here's the thing. Who you are at church when you're a disciple of God, that's who you are. I love it because at work, I disciple people. I don't care. You're a disciple. You're not a disciple. I'm going to disciple you. And I love it. There was this time. So I work at the Container Store. I work at the Container Store. I manage the floor along with I design closets and sell them. And another designer who was there, her name's Andrea. She just graduated from Sac State, funny enough, and she was just like, she was complaining about something. And she was just, I just want to do like basically the bare minimum. I want to get paid. I want to get out of here. I want to go home. And I was just like, I can't stand it. I can only take so much. But I was like, Andrea, there's only most of what we do in life is out of our control. 100%. Out of control. You can't control like what customers come in. You can't control like who you're gonna work with, our managers, all this stuff. A lot of stuff is out of our control. Andrea, are you hearing me? And she's like, yeah. But I was like, here's what you can control. You control your work ethic. You control your integrity, your character, and how you treat others. So I'm gonna choose to work hard rather than think that way. And she was just like, I don't like you right now. I was just like, tough. Like, this is what it is. There was another time where I had to rebuke Kang and Davion because they weren't working hard enough. But here it is. Who you are as you walk with God just needs to be who you are. Let me tell you, you should never water the standard. Like, if there's a coworker talking to you late at night, you should never talk to them. Like, I would never, in my walk, maybe as a young disciple, I was a little knucklehead, okay? But like, once I started to get my bearings, I was like, no, I don't care if there was someone who needed my help at midnight. If it was someone of the opposite sex, I would never put myself in that position. Right. Why? Because I value my walk with God. I know who I am. I know what sin I can give into. I would never put myself in that position. And let me tell you, if there's a brother or sister here and there's people reaching out to you past like a certain hour and they're trying to get something, you know, it's obvious when something is happening there. All right? You need to have the conviction that, hey, they may not follow God on their own, but I'm going to stand on my righteousness because I walk with God faithfully. You know what I love too? During Ahaz's time, it says that the customs of their nations are what influenced them to give into sin. And I think a lot of the times, we allow the customs of even our ethnicity. We allow the customs of where we were raised. We allow the customs of even our own personality to dictate how we treat others. You know, it's time you baptize those things, right? Into the waters of baptism, you know, let them come out clean. And you learn to just live your life according to the lens of the Bible.
Come on, bro.
Because that's what it is going to take if we're going to let true freedom ring in Jesus Christ.
Come on, bro.
You know, let's be a people that walks fiercely with God, and it shows how we treat others. Amen. You know, if we're going to let freedom ring, there's something else we have to do. We have to hold the line. You know, in war, a lot of the times, if you don't hold that line, you're going to get taken out. You're going to lose. Lives are going to be lost. Blood is going to be shed if you don't hold the line.
Come on, bro.
Turn me over here to 2 Kings, or same chapter, 18, verse 31.
Nice. Come on, bro.
In verse 31.
There, bro. Amen.
And the Bible reads here in 31 through 36. Do not listen. Actually, sorry, a little backstory here. So what had happened up until this time, Hezekiah is king. And what's happening is the Assyrian army, which was the great world power during this time, they were taking over everybody, including Israel, north of Judah there. But they also wanted to take out Judah. Okay. And so what they do is they send a delegation to Hezekiah because they want them to basically surrender. King of Assyria was actually worried too because he was worried about Egypt and that he was going to have to face 2 wars on 2 sides. So he wanted Hezekiah to surrender, so they were going to be more of a help than a hindrance. And so what he ends up doing is he sends a delegation and he's like, hey, basically trying to call a truce. And his truce he's not using his words very wisely here. And that's where we're going to pick up. In verse 31. And the Bible says here, do not listen to Hezekiah. This is what the king of Assyria says. Make peace with me and come out to me. Then each of you will eat fruit from your own vine and fig tree and drink water from your own cistern, until I come and take you to a land like your own, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of olive trees and honey. Choose life and not death. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for he is misleading you when he says the Lord will deliver us. Has the God of any nation ever delivered his land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim and Hena and Iva? Have they rescued Samaria from my hand? Who of all the gods of these countries has been able to save this land from me? How then can the Lord deliver Jerusalem from my hand? But the people remained silent and said nothing in reply because the king had commanded, do not answer them.
Come on, bro.
You know, here the delegation from Assyria comes and he's like, hey, don't listen to your king. We've conquered everybody. They've prayed to their gods. It didn't work. There was even a time where even the king of Syria is like, hey, actually, God is sending me to conquer you guys. So why don't you just give up? I'm going to give you everything you want, and you're going to be fine.
Wow.
And I love it here. And then at the end, the response of the Hebrews here of Hezekiah's delegation is they just remain silent. And I think there is a godly quality when people are throwing a whole bunch of false accusations at you, that if you're silent, there's probably not much that they're saying that is true. But it's that person that gets defensive. Yeah. It's that person that gets in their emotions. It's that person that gets in their feelings, where it's like, well, why? Like, what's going on? There is an innocence, there is a purity, there is a righteousness when even in accusations, you can remain silent.
Come on, bro.
And that's exactly why they remain silent.
Come on, bro. That's great.
It's kind of funny. I love watching UFC. I love watching it. There's something about people fighting in a cage and fists that's just like, it's very American to me. It's very American. Yes. And you know what I really love too is the build up to the fights. And you kind of see a lot of the fighters' personalities come out. Some of them, they fight to be humble, but the trash talking is so real. And they're just back and forth, they're bantering. But you know what I love about one of the fighters? He's no longer fighting, but he was one of my favorite. It was Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
Because he understood. He was just like, hey, I'm not much of a trash talker myself.
Right.
He's like, just wait till we get in the octagon.
Yeah.
Just wait. It's one of his favorite sayings. I'll smash your boy. It's like, he was ready. He was ready to go to war. He didn't always have to defend himself. Like, reporters would try to get in there and get his emotions to flare up.
Yeah.
Other opponents would try to get his emotions to flare up. And he was just like, I can't wait till we get in the octagon.
Right.
It's like, that was his heart. And a lot of the times, this is something we have to learn. I think a lot of us are so used to being responsive in our emotions, in our feelings, and how people make us feel, that we have to learn to just filter that through the scriptures.
Come on, bro.
Because the odds are going to be stacked against you.
Yeah.
Go ahead and drop with me down to verse 14 in chapter 19.
Come on, bro.
Up until this point, we're going to hop down to verse 14. But the king of Assyria, what's happening is he's feeling the pressure. He's feeling the pressure from Egypt. And he's telling Hezekiah, just surrender. And this is Hezekiah's response in verse 14.
Come on, bro.
It says, Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers and read it. Then he went up to the temple of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, Lord, the God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Give ear, Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, Lord, and see. Listen to the words Sennacherib has sent to ridicule the living God. It is true, Lord, that the Assyrian kings have laid waste these nations and their lands. They have thrown their gods into the fire and destroyed them, for they were not gods, but only wood and stone, fashioned by human hands. Now, Lord, our God, deliver us from his hand, so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord, are God.
Come on, bro.
You know, I love it here. Hezekiah, after hearing that letter, feeling the pressure from his people. And you know what's even crazy is, like, when that assembly came from Assyria, everyone heard it. All of God's people that were manning the walls, they heard the threat. Yeah. And the thing about words is, words will get in there.
Yeah.
They'll plant themselves deep in your heart, on your mind, and they will corrupt.
Yeah.
They will poison. Our words are powerful.
Yeah.
And so Hezekiah knows this. And so what does he do? He does the most righteous thing any man or woman of God can do in this moment. He hears this. He gets another letter. The assembly king. He's like, hey, I need to go to God. I need to pray. And that's exactly what he does. Like, it says that he laid out the letter before God.
Yeah.
He's like, God, see. He's like, God, hear. Like, God, you, like, they are ridiculing you. They are going to battle with you, Father.
Yeah.
And he knows, like, God, we need you to deliver us.
Yeah.
Those words had gone deep into the people. And he knew, like, hey, if we're going to overcome this, I have to hold the line in my prayer.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Hezekiah did.
Come on, bro.
You know, rather than reference his father Ahaz, this is what times were like during his time. From 2 Kings 17, it says, but they would not listen and were as stiff-necked as their ancestors, who did not trust in the Lord their God. They rejected his decrees and the covenant that had made with their ancestors and the statutes he had warned them to keep. They followed worthless idols and themselves became worthless. They imitated the nations around them, although the Lord had ordered them to not do as they do.
Wow.
And it's really crazy, because really during the time of Ahaz, what they wanted to do, they just wanted to be a part of the rest of the world. And they didn't want to hold the line that God had put before them. So like, hey, let's just be like them. And I tell you, in God's kingdom, as you follow him, that is the temptation we all must overcome. And I think we can totally start to get in our heads and be like, hey, why does Victor get a region? Nice. He gets a region. We start comparing ourselves, and it's like, if you don't do it in the kingdom, you're like, man, hey, like that coworker at work, they don't seem as stressed as me. They weren't trying to like raise $2,000 to hit their missions. They don't disciple someone. They're going on vacation soon. Like, man, the grass seems a little greener over there. Like, what's going on? It's not greener. Grass is green where you water it. And you got to make sure you're watering it with your times with God, that you're holding the line in these areas. Now, family, if I could, there are some areas in our church here that we need to hold the line on.
Okay.
That I think we all need to start to get on the same page. And that one of the lines we have to hold is the line of family.
Nice.
We have to hold the line of family here. Here's the thing. Sacramento Church was planted in 2015. I remember when I came to my first church service. I thought it was a little weird that it was in a hotel conference room. But everyone kept coming up to me and asking me, like, hey, Isaac, what'd you think of church? And I honestly, I don't really know what I thought. But the thing that I remember saying was, I could tell you guys are family. And the 14 that planted the church here in Sacramento, they were a family. They held on to that. They held that line. They understood this was the kingdom and they were the hope. And that what we were going to do was it had to stay at that spot. That line of family can't move. I tell you, family, it's moved. It has moved in Sacramento since 2015. Like, you have to look at your brother. You have to look at your sister. That's family. And you can't let that go down. You know, too many times I've seen people visiting our church and I see like two brothers bickering. Or I see two sisters bickering. And I see people off to themselves. That's not a family.
Right.
I'll tell you what, maybe a family of the world were like tolerating, like you can't tolerate each other, so you just separate each other and never go to that family reunion again. Sure, you can do that in the world. But in God's kingdom, no, there is a standard of family that each and every person in here needs to fight to live. And the only way we hold that line is if we each make that decision to do so. Let's hold the line of family. Amen? You know, another line we have to hold is the line of hard work. Let me tell you, when those 14 came in Sacramento in 2015, I heard how hard they worked. I heard how hot it was. I heard the crazy things Jacob was having a lot of the guys do when they got here. I got a little chuckle out of it. But let me tell you, they worked hard. I think a lot of us, we love to do the bare minimum, just like Andrea.
Okay.
We love to, whether we do it willingly or not. We're just like, how can I? What? Like, I just want to. I go to church. I'm gonna go to church. I go to midweek. I'll show up to my D time. All right, cool. I hit the things I'm supposed to do, and we're totally content with that.
Yeah.
And we don't share our faith. We're not really diving into our Bible, and we're content.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, when we went to the Bay Area with the Biases, I loved it when we went there because we went to UC Berkeley. And, Victor and I, we knew we were going to storm Berkeley. We were going to figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing that never happened, though. This never happened. Jacob never sat us down and said, I want you to work from this time to this time. And then I want you to get to campus by this time. I want you to share with this amount of people, be in this amount of studies. And that's your day. He never did that. Never did that. Not once did he sit us down and tell us what to do. But what Victor and I knew we had to do, as those who were going to follow God, was we were going to save people through hard work.
Come on, bro.
So what would we do? We'd work from like 5 to 10 or 5 to 11. And then what we do? We get to campus by like 12 or 1. And what we do? We share with 100 people. Get a Bible study. One with 100 people.
Let's go, Berkeley.
And then what we do? We hop into some Bible studies, get into our D times, and get home late at night. Where hopefully Courtney saved us some food because we were hungry. But that's what we would do. No one told us to do that. I wasn't getting paid. I think Victor had just maybe barely started to. And it wasn't a lot. It's not like he was making a killing off of it. No, we understand like, hey, the way we are going to build God's kingdom was with hard work.
Yeah.
You know, they worked hard in 2015, and that's something we have to continue to do in 2023.
Yes.
And that's everybody. I don't care if you want to go into the ministry. I don't care if you want to be a shepherd. I don't care if you're just like, hey man, I'm going to lead a cranking Bible talk one day. I'm going to help many get to God. Wherever you're at, it's all to God's glory, but it is going to be done through hard work.
Come on.
And man, let's hold the line of hard work.
Come on, bro.
Another line we have to hold is righteousness and mental fortitude. Here's the thing. The Bible is the standard no matter what. No matter what. No matter who's in front of you. The Bible should always be your standard. You know that time at work when I rebuked King and Davion? I'll tell you the story. We're at work, and I do technically manage those two. Well, not Davion so much anymore. He has a different position now. But you're still on the payroll, bro, so let me know if you want to work a shift. But we're at work, and we're working, and I had to pull this other girl to the back room to have a talk with her because she wasn't working. And so I had to teach her a little bit about hard work and respect and how she needs to have both of them. And then I asked her at the end of it, I was like, hey, like, do you get it? Like, do you understand? And she was like, I get it. I understand. But then at the end, she was like, but I noticed there was two guys talking and not working in the store. And she was like, and it's King and Davion. And she knows they're my friends. She knows that I go to church with them, that Davion was in my wedding, I was in his wedding. And she's just like, it sounds like you're watering your standard for your friends. Little did she know, before I pulled her back to go to the room, we actually went to the gas station during our break, and I rebuked Davion and Kang for talking and not working. Because here's the thing. I don't, like, if you're my best friend, I love you. It's awesome. Victor, I do love you. But the Bible's the standard. I'm never going to water down the scriptures because I like Tony Cachavo. That would be doing a disservice to him. You know, I'm never going to water down the Bible for Ernesto the Besto, even though he really is the Besto. Like, that would just be doing a disservice to him. And that's why we have to hold that line of righteousness even in our relationships.
Come on, bro.
And I also touched on mental fortitude.
What's your Davion?
I think Davion was good. He has a good forehead. But some of us, when we're faced with that like hard D time, or something bad happened in our day, or even simply like you got cut off, or the light's not turning green as fast as you would like it. Like some of you literally just like, oh, woe is me. Why is this happening to me? Like, God, can't you give that to someone else? Like, oh my God, I just don't know if I can handle one more thing. I just don't, it's so hard. I just don't know. Like, God, give that battle to someone else. Like, let me tell you, guys, it's not cool. It's not righteous. It's not the way a man or woman of God should conduct themselves. Like, learn Hezekiah prayed. People wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
He prayed.
Come on, bro.
The light's not turning green fast enough, as fast as you would like it. Hey, pray. Go to God. Allow God to help you win that one.
Come on, bro.
You know, during the time of Ahaz, this is how bad things got. In 2 Chronicles 28, it says, In his time of trouble, King Ahaz became even more unfaithful to the Lord. He offered sacrifices to the gods of Damascus who had defeated him. For he thought, since the gods of the king of Aram have helped them, I will sacrifice to them so that they will help me. But they were his downfall and the downfall of all Israel.
Yeah.
And it's really crazy here because Ahaz, what he had done is in his time of trouble, he wouldn't go to God, he would go to other things. And in fact, he saw some of these other countries were going to their gods and their gods were answering their prayers. So he's like, hey, well, if your gods are doing that for you, like, hey, let me go to them. If I go to your God, maybe then I will win. Maybe then God will be with me. And let me tell you, that's very dangerous. But it's very real at the same time. You start comparing like, well, hey, why is Nathan Ryder getting all these opportunities, doing all these things, and like, why is it working for that guy? Or even like you start looking outside of the kingdom, like, man, this guy, he seems to have it all together. He has a job. He's married. He has a great car, the car that I would like. Like, man, let me go pray to your God of greed.
Come on, bro.
You know, that guy has that woman or that girl has the guy that you want. Hey, let me go pray to your God of lust. And you start thinking like, man, if I just do what they do, I will have what they have. And let me tell you, that's a very scary place to find yourself in. We have to hold those lines, family. Like the torch has to keep burning amongst all of us. Not just the Bible talk leaders. You know, not just those who are in a position of leadership. But every single person here needs to know that, hey, I hold the line, the torch is in my hands, and I need to pass it on. Let me tell you, I get super indignant. When there's someone who's trying to get to know God, like maybe they're not a Christian, or maybe they're really struggling in their relationship with God, they're trying to get closer to Him, and they come amongst those who consider themselves God's kingdom, God's family, and they don't conduct themselves in a way. You know, they start talking of these things of greed. Start talking of these things of lust. Starting to allow themselves to talk about other things that aren't going to build up the kingdom, but rather destroy it. Like, that stuff ticks me off. And I think we need to be a family that holds the line of righteousness and not let those things be talked about. We have to keep that torch burning.
This is awesome, bro.
You know, in order for freedom to ring, my last point here, you know, freedom rings when we fight. Freedom rings when we fight. In 2 Kings 19, in verse 31. And the Bible reads here, I'm actually going to pick up in 31b, which is the last sentence there. It says, the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Therefore, this is what the Lord says concerning the king of Assyria. He will not enter this city or shoot an arrow here. He will not come before it with shield or build a siege ramp against it. By the way he came, he will return. He will not enter this city, declares the Lord. I will defend this city and save it, for my sake and for the sake of David, my servant. That night, the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. One day, while he was worshiping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sharezer killed him with the sword, and they escaped to the land of Iraq. You know, the funny thing about fighting, you know, when it comes to God and His kingdom, if you walk with God, God does the fighting for you. If you notice, none of the men of Judah picked up a weapon.
Right.
They didn't go to war in the way we would think of waging war. It says that as Hezekiah went and he prayed, that God answered. And God gave them the victory. It says they wouldn't even bring their shield. Not an arrow would enter the city. That God was going to give them the victory. And that's exactly what God did. And Sacramento, God is going to give us a victory. We just need to make sure we are close to Him. I hope everyone is ready. As it heats up, so should your zeal for the Lord. Because that's what the scriptures say here. Let me tell you, I know the campus ministry is really excited for the fall semester. As am I. And let me tell you, Sac State does not know what's coming this fall. But let me tell you, it doesn't have to wait till then. The summer is here. It is getting hot, not just in the weather, but even in our spirits. Let's show Sacramento now what we can do. Like everywhere you go, everyone is a possible opportunity to help get their life right with God. Like, don't let the doubts creep in. Allow your zeal for the Lord to come out. Just extend it and help someone. Because let me tell you, we are going to light a fire in Sacramento. And I can't wait to see what the Politos go and do and light their own fire in Roseville as well. You know, family, it's time to pick up our swords. It is time to fight. It's time to walk fiercely with our God. It's time to hold the line of the Lord. And it's time to go to war with and for God. And to God be the glory.